Hey there, YouTubers. So I thought I would throw together a video kind of looking at FortNite mainly, some of my first place, second place, third place games. See if there's anything in here that we could directly correlate to them. You know, what made me actually finish first based on the computer specs, maybe the resolution, the quality, those kind of things. Frame rates, right? So there's kind of a correlation between frame rates and low settings, and not so much with the higher resolutions, such as like say 4K, and then the higher quality, such as Epic, right? So let's actually we'll start with first place. So this first one, maybe a bit of an outlier. A first place in here, 1440p Epic. Great CPU here, i7-12700F. I just did this one. 3070 Ti. Decent FPS in this. Let's see if we can get this to pop up. It's probably going to bring a commercial in. Yep, was surprised. I want to pause this. All right, so did it pause? There we go. I'll pause that too. So decent FPS here. Now, I couldn't tell you if I was gaming on a 1440p 144 hertz monitor or this was using my 4K monitor, but you can tell obviously the FPS is pretty high, at least for this setting, right? There's way higher FPS, but this, it had been played on a 144 hertz monitor. It's right in the zone almost. Obviously, you'd want to be higher than 144, but still, this is a really good frame rate for the quality. Let's go back. So 4K Epic, definitely an outlier here, right? This would probably suffer most likely from a lower FPS, but look what we had on it. i7-12700F, RTX 3090. Once again, let me pause the video and pull up. All right, so I also move this to the end of the video. Not really a great FPS. If you had 120 hertz monitor, this would be decent, right? To be honest with you, cranking this back a little, not many people talk about 4K high, no shadows, but that's another setting that honestly would increase the FPS and put it in that zone really that you would want to have it in. Now, not many people also have 4K 120 hertz monitors or higher, right? So it's not likely somebody's going to game on that and enjoy being able to have that higher FPS and see it. Most likely your game in 60 hertz. So this is really not a good, in my opinion, resolution for gaming. Next one, 1080p competitive. This is boom right there, right? Now the RTX 3090 might be a little too much GPU for the CPU, but let me pause this again so we can look at it. All right, so really high FPS, right? Should be even higher though, to be honest with you, if these were paired up good. You can tell by the usage of the CPU and the GPU. GPU's not doing a whole lot. This is more of a CPU intensive setting. And obviously, this kind of frame rate, you're going to be able to kick butt, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that, you know, folks, I think you'll see a lot of these 1080p competitives in here. This 1080p competitive, in case you don't know, provides you with epic texture and distance. And the other stuff, you know, that really doesn't help you that much at the gameplay is either low or disabled. So then 1080p low is not as good of a picture to look at because textures and visual distance are set to low. So it's not one of my favorites. I definitely like competitive over 1080p low. Prefer honestly 1440p competitive or low, but you see there are not that many where I was successful because there is a bit of a drop off in FPS, depending on the graphics card. 4K high. This was another one of those that just wow. Somehow we brought it right. 3070 Ti matched with the 87 i7 8700K. Not really a good pairing these days. But you know, this FPS was pretty low. I'm not going to pull it up. i9 9900K RTX 3060 Ti. This would have had really good FPS. Been able to obviously move around quick. And obviously gameplay on a 144 240 hertz monitor would, you know, work out pretty good with that. So you're seeing a lot of 1080p low competitive. There's a 1440p competitive with a GTX 1660. Not one of my preferred graphics cards, obviously. FPS was, you know, probably just high enough. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, so we're back in. See that average? You know, if you had a 1440p monitor, 144 hertz, this works at this setting, right? Most likely, you know, a lot of people don't have that. Maybe they're playing on a 4K TV, whatever it may be. But this works in this case, folks. This is about the extent of, you know, in my opinion, potentially the best resolution you could run with this setup. Another 1080p low. See a lot of those. Here's me turning on some other stuff. 1080p high DLSS. But look at the CPU and the graphics card. It easily handled that. Now, just to, you know, just to show I could still do it, playing at a crappy resolution, 900p. I'm not even sure there's a 720p. I don't think I could handle 720p, but 900p on a laptop, folks. Gaming laptop, Ryzen 7 4800H, GTX 1660 Ti mobile. Cranked out of first place there. Came back, bumped it up to 1080p, performance low. Both of these were on AC power. Of course, if you're not plugged in, the FPS will drop off. But yeah, able to game decently. And FPS wasn't that great on those. I'm not even gonna bother bringing them up. But then we get into one of the older cards that I have, GTX 1080, 1080p medium. That's, you know, a decent setting. I highly prefer that over 1080p low. Obviously, if I can pull it off, 1080p competitive, followed by 1440p competitive, and then 4K competitive, just not worth it because I don't have a monitor that supports that high refresh. So just to weaken up this i9 10850K, got rid of turbo boost, neutered it basically. Was not as awesome of a card, but Still very high FPS based on 1080p low, right? Then we get down here, another 1080p low. So the common denominator, folks, 1080p low. And I have multiple 1440p monitors, 4K monitors. I obviously like, better resolution, but gosh, folks, it does appear 1080p low, 1080p competitive is the way to go. Then you have this Warzone, only one I threw in here. 1080p normal, that had a pretty high FPS. There's the RTX 2070 Super, which you haven't seen on the channel in a while. Here is 1080p Epic, so not even a no shadow Epic. Stressing that RX 590, that would not have had that great of FPS. Somehow I pulled it out. Some of these games, obviously just get lucky. Sometimes, you get a lot of kills and you still win. Sometimes you barely kill anybody and you win. Keeping in that 5 to 11 kill range and winning always feels good. If I get less than 5, I feel kind of like I cheated people. If I get more than 11 kills, I feel like I should have won because I probably killed more than anybody else. So that is, how I did in first place. And then that final 1080p with an older card, GTX 1066 gig. See, second places. Throwing in some, goofy ones here, but 1080p performance epic. That would have been really high FPS right there. 1080p, another 1080p low, 1440p competitive. My one of my favorite settings, but not really good for a 1060. i7 8700K and RX 470. Oh my God, second place there. I can only imagine some of these games you watch and you're like, I just did not react that good at the end. And then you're like, man, if I had a better monitor, if I had a little more horsepower, that, would not be that great of a setup, the i7 8700K and RX 470, compared to what I'm used to. Some may say I'm spoiled. That may be the case. 1440p competitive, 10700K GTX 1080. That, that was probably a decent FPS there. 1080p medium, FortNite. Weak graphics card, right? CPU's decent. Pulled out a second place. Can only imagine had I had a better setup that day. i3 10100, not a good pairing with the 2070 Super. Got a second place there. 1440p, Epic No Shadows. i5 10400 RX 590. Another 1440, or this is a 1440p low. 1080p competitive. And then who knows what that resolution is on that final one. Third places, 1440p competitive. Here's, throwing a 4K competitive. But, it boils down to, folks, 1080p competitive, 1080p low, 1440p low, 1440p competitive. Those are probably the best, at least for me. Those are the best resolutions and quality that I can put together and beat the game, right? So, hey, thanks for checking out the video. I hope this may help you with setting up your resolutions. Thank you.